Hello everybody, welcome to the Daily Sip. My name is Oliver. My mission is to bring you closer to organic Japanese green tea, and today we're gonna dive into a rather sad theme because I left my tea pack open and unfortunately my tea lost a little bit of flavor. So I brought again the same tea, and I just want to dive into this topic of when you have lost your aroma of your tea, what actually happens in terms of taste. I will guide you through what are the differences taste-wise of these two teas. One, I have the unopened pack and one I have the open pack, and why it is so important to store and what actually you can do to avoid that your tea loses aroma. So when we dive into today's session, I brought with me a Kamairicha from Mr. Miyazaki Sabo. Kamairicha is actually a pan-fired tea, which is an original way of the Chinese tea or most of the Chinese tea is actually pan-fried. And this is a typicity which you can find still in Japan. Meanwhile, most of the Japanese tea is steamed, so is put in the steam bath. The pan frying method is actually something which is still done in the south of Japan, on the island of Kyushu, in the region of Miyazaki mainly. So this is a tea which has a slightly roasted aroma, so it has a little bit of this caramelly notes. So the aroma is pushed quite decently. It has less bitterness, less astringency, but it also has a little bit less of this typical Japanese known umami taste. So I want to dive into this, and we have a first look at the aspect of the tea. And now I forgot my scissors. Let me get it. So as the first step, we're gonna look actually at how the leaves look like and if anything has changed in terms of aspect of the leaves since I left this pack here open. And I'm just gonna pour around 5 grams of leaves on the first plate, and then I'm gonna open up the second one. And put in the same. Good. So this is the fresh one, and this is the not fresh one. So when we have a look at the leaves, we see there's actually no difference. Both of them, they're from the same batch, both of the teas, so they should have really the same aspect, and they actually do. And we're gonna use this. So in terms of aroma, or visible aspect or visual aspect, here we're absolutely on the same level, so no difference. And now let's have just a first smell on the leaves. So this is the older pack. It's a little bit of a weaker smell. There's a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of kind of caramel, slightly dark, a little bit milk chocolate flavor, and a slight roasted undertone. This is what I'm getting if I'm smelling the pack that's longer open now. Let's do and have a look with the freshly open one. Oh, clearly different. So we have much more vegetal, much more green notes here, sweeter notes, very, very beautiful in terms of just this light and fresher aroma which you're getting. So big difference when I smell the leaves. So definitely one much more greener. This one is just incredible in terms of taste profile. So get even a little bit of a fruity undertone. So very beautiful. And here it's a little bit more, it seems a little bit more wooden, a little bit kind of also lower, less strong clearly, but a little bit more of a wooden undertone, while here I get much more of a greener and more complex, a little bit of fruit, a little bit of this vegetal notes, slightly roasted notes, but only very, very slightly. Meanwhile here I get a little bit more but it's much, much weaker. So here a little bit more of these roasted wooden notes, here clearly a little bit of these greener notes, even a little bit fruity, and a little bit of these vegetal notes. So very, very beautiful in terms of the new tea. Still quite okay when I go for the one which has been open for a longer time. But now I'm really curious how the taste profile of these two tea is actually different. And for that I brought the same Kyushu, and I'll brew at the same temperature. This time I use 70 degrees Celsius. It's at the moment my go-to temperature. Sometimes I go to 60 degrees Celsius, but today I want to go to 70, and at the moment I'm more in the phase of a little bit wanting to drink hotter tea. Very simple to brew this tea. You just use 1 minute, 70 degrees Celsius, as I told you before, which is 165 Fahrenheit. Take a little bit more. And then we got just going to leave it in for a minute, and in this minute I'll just explain you a little bit what the difference is in the term of production process. So the Kamairicha, as you might know, Japanese green tea, when it's harvested, it is put into a steam bath, but only a steam bath of around 105 degrees Celsius. So there really you have between 30 to seconds to 1 minute. You have the steam bath, which is then just getting rid of the enzymes, which then can convert the green tea into a black tea if you leave them outside, and they can oxidize. With the Kamairicha, you do actually a similar process, but you do at the same time pan firing, which goes up to 400 degrees Celsius. So it's a much higher temperature, which then slightly roasted. So it steams and roasts the tea at the same time in the first step. And at the end, you roast it again. And if you want to have hojicha, which is fully roasted tea with the hojicha, then you go over 1 hour at 100 degrees to 140 degrees Celsius. With the Kamairicha, it's much less, so the time is just different, and so the Kamairicha, you could even say, is a semi-roasted tea, if you might say so. Good, so we are ready here. Then let's take the tea. Here the water cools down a little bit. I didn't preheat my Kyushu, so my teapot. What you can do is you just pour in a little bit of hot water, you pour it out just to preheat the temperature. So here I will be around 65, between 60 and 65 degrees Celsius in the end with my tea, due to the fact that the teapot got a little bit the water cooler. So when we already see and compare the liquid, so you can see here we're a little bit more golden in terms of color. Here a little bit lighter in green. So already in the color of the brewing you can see a difference. Here we're a little bit more golden yellowish, and here it goes a little bit more in the golden orangey tones, but a very, very small difference between the two. Do we use the same amount of water? I think we're good. And we can go first with the older tea. So let's have a try of the older tea. The one that has been longer open and opened without being well closed. Still a nice tea. So the tea itself will keep certain flavors, but only the finer aromas, the finer flavor and taste notes, they will start to disappear when you leave it open. So I get here a little bit of an astringency, a little bit of bitterness of the tea, but with it as well a nice roasted, a little bit sweet corn. You can even like getting a little bit of a roasted sweet corn flavor profile. Reminds me nearly a little bit about when you put toast bread into the toaster and it's kind of this golden color. That's a little bit the taste note I'm getting when you bite the first time into your toast. So it's a little bit cereally and a little bit of this slightly roasted, toasted flavor profile, mixed with a little bit of an astringency and a slight bitterness coming with it as well. when we are going for the second one. So when I can compare the brewing is again, here I get a little bit more the darker notes. Here much more also fresher notes. And let's see in terms of taste profile. So much more sweet, finer notes. I get a similar, this a little bit more astringent notes. This is there, the tea doesn't seem to have changed a lot. So these astringent bitter notes, they stay more or less the same. They are decent, they're not very strong. They're pretty subtle, so they're not overwhelming in terms of, in general, of the tea. But what I'm getting here much more is this finer, sweeter note. So this sweeter aroma, the umami seems to get lost a little bit. So a little bit of fruit notes I get, and I get green notes. So I get a little bit of edamame. So this tea is much more complex in terms of taste profile. So the big difference, what you will see when you're losing aroma with your tea, it gets flat, and what stays with it is more a little bit this more astringent notes. The wooden notes, kind of this cereally notes, they stay very well in the tea, which you're getting as well with the new and fresh tea. But the new and fresh tea, here I got much more this subtle umami, sweeter, a little bit fruit notes, a little bit of green notes as well, edamame notes. So it's much more complex and much more enjoyable. And that's why it's super important to keep your tea fresh. So I did here the first brewing. I just want to do a second one to see if on the second brewing they kind of approach each other and become in terms of taste similar. But definitely what you're losing are these complex, fine notes, subtle notes. And that's a pity, because why I left this tea bag open. Good. Only 20 seconds, the second brewing. So a very short brewing time. Good. Again, slight difference in color. It gets a little bit more cloudy, this tea, in the second brewing. But you can see here still a little bit more this orangey tone, while here we have a little bit this lighter green tone. But they're getting pretty close to each other. So in the first brewing we had a little bit of more of a clear kind of a liquid. Now it's changing more into a cloudy, and they seem to get quite close to each other. So let's have first the older leaves, or the longer opened tea bag. So I must say now in the second brewing this tea gets quite flat. There's still a little bit this astringency, there's a little bit of a roasted aroma. There's a nice sweetness with it, but all in all, it already starts to fade out now in the second brewing, which is a pity. Normally you should have, with a good Japanese green tea, you have over 3 brewings, really 3 nice and very tasty brewings. So here, with the leaves that have been out, the leaves that have just been at open air, you might say so, they really lose their flavor profile. And now in the second brewing I definitely notice it, that here I'm not having a lot very pleasurable drink. Let's have the first one, or the newly opened. Mm. What's nice, it has still, and this I didn't mention in the first brewing, it has also kind of a slightly nutty, creamy, a little bit of cashew nutty undertone. This I'm getting a lot. I think it's a result of the theanine, which is just the amino acids, where the amino acids are still very present. And I think it's also the essential oils that might move out faster if you leave the tea leaves at an open, or the tea leaf bag or the tea bag open. What here stays a lot in are actually these essentials, which give a little bit of a nearly a milky undertone, and this I got already in the first brewing, and now I'm getting it again. Meanwhile here everything is actually gone, so it seems to me that the very fine essential oils, they're actually staying longer in the leaves, or they are present in the leaves when you have them well stored. Meanwhile, if you do improper storing or storage, then you actually lose these fine notes. And this I'm getting nicely in the second brewing. It's just more flavorful. Yeah, there's a lot of this astringency, which I'm still getting. So it's kind of only the layer of the astringency seems to be in the tea, and losing very fast its flavor profile. Yeah, I definitely get a more density, a little bit more of this milky, creamy texture, which reminds me a little bit of cashew nut. So very, very beautiful stays in this. I guess on the third one they get maybe a little bit closer. So this tea is very good for 2 brewings. Maybe the third one might get a little bit weak. But now we want to talk about what can you actually do to prevent this. So there are pretty simple tricks you can use. So first one, when you open the pack, so I take now my fresh pack. When you open it, then you can just fold it, because there's no zipper or anything with this farmer. So you just fold it like this. Then you fold it again so that you start to close the opening, and you fold it again so that the opening is really underneath the folded part. And things that I've already seen that people do are actually, you just take this rubber here and then you just put it around and you close it like that. Super simple, easy done, and it stays closed, and it stays, as you put the opened part, it's below, so there's no air coming in. Even here it cuts off the air, so it's quite a decent way of closing with this rubber band. But the problem here with the rubber band is actually that you're starting to squeeze the leaves. Squeezing the leaves is not a good thing, because when you squeeze the leaves you crush them together and they start to break, and then you have very small particles in your tea. With some teas you do want that, as for example with the Fukamushicha, the deep steam teas, this is absolutely no problem. But with this beautiful tea, which we saw before, I can show it to you again, with this beautiful round kind of needle shape, round needles which you get, kind of swirl tea leaves. It is a pity, so you will break the leaves, so it's definitely not my favorite method. But it is absolutely something you can do with, for example, a Fukamushicha or deep steamed tea, which has already a little bit brittle leaves. A second option after the rubber band is actually a clip. So what you can do is actually you do exactly the same. So you again fold your tea bag, but instead of the rubber band around it, you use a clip. So they're super easy to get. In each supermarket you can buy them. And then you just close where you opened the bag. And this is actually a super easy way, and it's my go-to if I want to keep the tea in the tea bag or in the original tea bag. This is a super easy way also to stock it. And the third, and I think it's the best option, what you can get is actually if you buy one of these cans or tins where you can put your tea inside. So here inside I still have a small bag, a silver bag. So these are often quite simple tins where you can keep the tea in, so you can put the tea inside. Either you keep it in a small bag like this. I often just put directly the leaves inside. I close it and then you can stock it. It doesn't only look good, but it keeps really the aroma of getting away. So it's a very, very good use of or good protection for your tea, and especially as it's not in the bag, there's no pushing against it, so it's conserved well and the leaves are well protected. So this is definitely the best way to do it. If you don't have it, really go for the clipper. That's my suggestion, and if you want to stick with your rubber band, you can absolutely do that. But the most important is that after usage you close your tea bag, and then you will always have fresh tea leaves when you start your tea session. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope you like this, and if you have a question, please feel free to leave a comment. We will try to answer everything we can, and I wish you a great day, and I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.